Okay. Hello, everybody joining us live, and for those of you joining in the Slack, watching the recording on YouTube, it is May 11th, our usual Thursday morning DevLake Community Meetup. Today we've got a really simple but important and practical agenda to cover. Excited to kind of get back to our roots, so to speak, keeping it focused on the technology, keeping it focused on the product. As always, we'll be keeping the flow going here. You can certainly expect some great new interviews coming up in the coming weeks. We've got a couple really great ones in the works that I'll be announcing soon. But for today, we're going to go deep into DevLake and the latest releases, upcoming releases. I'm so glad to have you all here to jump in. I'm, of course, joined today by my friend, my colleague, my collaborator, creator, lead maintainer of DevLake, Hezheng. Thanks for joining me as always. How is life going on your end?
Pretty good. Excited to be here again.
Excellent. Always glad to have you here, especially knowing how busy you've been and knowing you're a bit under the weather. We all appreciate your hard work and being here early in the morning. So thank you as always. So let's jump into the agenda here. So pulling my screen back up. So as I mentioned, we're going to keep it nice and simple today. We've got community highlights, we've got the latest release, and then we've got the upcoming release. And then for any of you sticking around that have questions or want to discuss anything, Hezheng and I will stay in the room for a little bit to have any discussion. So first things first, we've got 2 slides here for community highlights, things that I really want to celebrate because it's a team effort. The DevLake family in Slack is now 607 developers strong, which I think is so exciting. And it's growing every day, as all of you know. About 15 new developers in that Slack every single week, about 10 new companies around the world diving into DevLake and getting started every week. And now over 10,000 Docker Hub pulls every single week. Obviously, these are just metrics that make us excited as maintainers and creators, but I think it's exciting for all of us, right? Where the level of growth of DevLake, the level of adoption, where we're seeing it in companies, big and small, teams, old and young, in all kinds of places around the world. I think this really just proves to all of us that there's something to be said about pursuing this data-driven engineering approach. There's something to be said about taking this open source approach to creating this kind of infrastructure. So thank you to all of you who are making this growth possible, sharing DevLake, contributing to it. And speaking of contributors, there's a few I want to mention on this slide and the next. Some interesting stories I want to shout out. So first off, we have a new contributor, our friend Jorge, based in Spain, who made an awesome contribution recently, updating the Helm chart, making DevLake even more practical and usable in some larger company settings. Jorge brought some fantastic wisdom to the conversation, some great perspective, and is such a fantastic proactive member of the community. So I want to give Jorge a shout out. Next, we have our new friend, Tatiana, who's based in Argentina. Tatiana is early in her DevOps career, but is really kind of diving into DevLake and impressing us with her enthusiasm and her learning in just getting straight into it. But most importantly, she shared with us a really cool little story just yesterday, actually, that she had a workshop in her company, diving deeper into DORA metrics, talking more about dev data, and a data-driven engineering using DevLake. And it's just very exciting to see people kind of starting in the beginning of their data journey and using DevLake to empower that. So Tatiana, thanks for sharing all of your great questions and for sharing all of these exciting updates with us. We also want to give a shout out to Sam Krang, based in Great Britain, my home country. Sam made a contribution recently and is always asking great questions and providing really great feedback to Hezheng, myself, and the team to keep improving DevLake, and that is something we value so much. I also want to give a shout out to our friend Mujahid, all the way in Jordan, Him and his colleague have been diving deep into some of the queries, providing some really useful optimizations for us to make sure that the dashboards are just a bit more performant, a bit more reliable. Mujahid, thank you to you and your team for getting this deep into it, and then for sharing your small optimizations with us, those small optimizations that make big differences. Last on this slide, I want to give some acknowledgement to one of our newer, younger community members, Gary from Virginia Tech, based here in the US, who has been really kind of getting deep into understanding DevLake, has been looking for good new first issues, has been engaging the team, and really looking to make a meaningful contribution to the project. So Gary, we thank you for diving in and for really investing the energy into getting to know DevLake. We're excited to see what you accomplish. We also, of course, want to give shout outs to first-time contributors from this recent period of time, the last couple of weeks, and of course, Jorge being one of them. A few others that we want to give acknowledgement to here. We'll call them out by their GitHub handles. So Coldgust, Lyric, and D Walker. David Walker, I know we're pals with. And then D4X1, thank you to all of you for making contributions to DevLake. It's so exciting to see. I think we're rapidly approaching 100 contributors. I think we'll get there in the next couple of weeks. And it's so exciting to see that we're really getting the best of everybody's perspectives from all corners of the world. That's really something I wanted to emphasize in kind of calling out people's geographies there. Is this isn't just one part of the world. This isn't just one kind of engineer. It's incredibly experienced engineers at massive companies. It's young engineers fresh out of university. It's engineers in startups. It's Latin America. It's Asia. It's the Middle East. It's Europe. It's North America. Truly, it's a global family. So we're so excited to see this. So thank you to all of you. Really want to celebrate these accomplishments and contributions. So I'll pass the microphone now to my colleague Hezheng, and Hezheng is going to cover some context and background on the latest release, talk about what you can expect, important notes, and then after that we'll dive into some kind of teasers and previews for what's coming next on the roadmap. But now I'll mute myself, and Hezheng, thanks as always for covering this information for us.
Thank you very much, Maxim. Okay, so time for some information on the latest releases. So right now we have one latest stable release, 0.16.0, and then concurrently we are working on the latest beta release, which is 0.17.0-beta 4. So first of all, I want to thank all the community for going through, entire 17 beta releases of 0.16. With each beta release, we have some bug fixes and some improvements to the framework and the plugins we have. And this is not possible without all the help from the community of reporting bugs and helping us fixing those bugs and making improvements to the system. So now we have reached a point where we are relatively confident on the stability of 0.16 release. And then we went through the voting process and got the official stable release out. There are still two non-limitations for 0.16.0. And then if these two limitations affect you, then we would recommend you take a look at the new 0.17 beta release. Otherwise, we recommend all users on 0.16 beta release to upgrade to the stable 0.16 official stable release. The first limitation is there's currently a lead time for change bug that will affect deployment of webhook and Jenkins users. This will not affect users who are using GitHub or GitLab CI/CD. So this bug is mostly because if your pull request comes from one data source and then your deployments come from another data source, and then right now there's a sort of a mismatch between these two entities. But this has been fixed in the 0.17 beta release. The fix isn't available in 0.16 just because it's a bit too challenging to cherry pick it back to 0.16, but it should be already available in 0.17-beta 4. The second limitation is also related to DORA. It has to do with a PR coding time, where DevLake sometimes is unable to obtain the first commit of a pull request under certain merge modes. So sometimes it's squash and merge, sometimes it's rebase and merge. Under certain merge modes, it's a bit more challenging to get the the first commit of the pull request, which is required to compute the PR coding time. This is also fixed in 0.17 beta release, but I'm not cherry-picked to 0.16. So these are the two current non-limitations of 0.16. And based on whether this affects you, we recommend you upgrade to the stable 0.16 or beta release of 0.17. Next slide, please. So a quick release preview on 0.18, which will be released in early June 2023. So this is just a selection of the new features and improvements. And then if you want to see all the features and improvements, then please go to our GitHub issues, and you can filter our issues with milestone v0.18. So to highlight new features, first one, we will add support for project and blueprint deletion in 0.18. So this is a highly requested feature, and we heard you. And this is in progress. It's going to be a huge pull request, so we're trying to break it down into multiple steps and then gradually reviewing it and merging it. This will be implemented by adding support for data scope level deletion, and then project and blueprint level deletion will just be built on top of it. The second new feature is we're going to allow enrichment to be run independently from collection. The DevLake data pipeline really consists of multiple steps, right? The first step is collection, which is the most time-consuming step, because usually the collection step is limited by the rate limit of our data sources. Like, for example, for GitHub, they have a rate limit of 5,000 requests per hour per person access token. And this could be, pretty slow for some organizations with a large number of repositories of data. And after collection is extraction, and then transformation, where we call it enrichment, which for example, computing DORA metrics on top of the data we collected. So those steps are run pretty fast, and so sometimes user needs to modify their transformation rules and rerun the enrichment. Right now, they have to go through this entire process, run the collection again, which could be hours. But starting from 0.17, we're going to allow users to run these two steps separately, so they can just modify their transformation rules on demand, and then rerun the enrichment and get new results in minutes instead of in hours. And then some of the highlights on the improvements, we're going to ship this 0.2.0 of the Azure DevOps plugin with support for external pipelines. And then we're also going to simplify the blueprint creation process by moving data scope configuration to the connection section. So the blueprint creation process will be easier and shorter and more focused on the important stuff. Lastly, we also enable bulk select Jenkins jobs to regex. This is particularly useful for companies with a ton of Jenkins jobs. It's going to make your life a bit easier to find the right jobs for deployments. Okay, that's going to be it. Right now, we are working on new features, improvements on 0.18, but also working on bug fixes for the beta release of 0.17. So hopefully, we'll get the official stable release of 0.17 out at roughly at the same time of the first beta release of 0.18 out. That's going to be the rhythm going forward. Okay, I'm going to pass the mic back to Maxim, and then if you have any questions, let us know in Slack or on GitHub. Thank you.
Fantastic. Really important updates. And I think if there's anything I would want to emphasize here, it's that in some cases, as probably many of you guys know, the complication of these seemingly simple features is so much deeper than it might appear on first inspection, where project deletion being one of those, right? for me, I was certainly of that same perspective. I'm like, how hard is it just to get rid of a project? Like, you just make it, you just get rid of it. And of course, there's a lot more to it than that. So just know that we're listening, we're paying attention in the Slack always. And something we love to see is, as Hezheng's slide referenced, is make sure to raise an issue on GitHub. If you've got something you think should be improved, if you have an idea for something that should be changed, or you want to propose a new feature, GitHub is always a great place to do that. Certainly, we more than welcome the discussion in the Slack. And if you want to kind of have a back and forth there first, we're always up for that too. But this is me just reminding you to feel super welcome to share your thoughts, share your perspective. DevLake keeps getting better, it keeps getting stronger because we're incorporating the perspective and feedback of this global community. So let's keep it going, create those issues, and we'll be so happy to see them. So as I promised, today's agenda, nice and sweet and simple, no less important, of course. So Hezheng and I will stick around for just a minute or two in case there are any questions. But otherwise, thank you for being part of DevLake, and we look forward to chatting with you on the next one. Have a good day, everybody.